Yo, Mac Descent, thank you for the 44 months. Hope you're doing well. Also have some cat hair on your mic. Do I? No one's ever pointed that out before. In the top left of Dragon Scales, we have Team Liquid's Clem. On the bottom right, we have Team Mouse's HeRoMaRinE. At one point, the Master versus the Apprentice. But now the Apprentice has grown stronger. And perhaps will turn to the dark side as well. I don't see that happening anytime soon for Clem, actually. Clem remains a very wholesome young man, I guess. Like, just smiley and always nice and always willing to talk, and never seen the guy angry, I don't think. You've seen him sad, frustrated at the video game, of course, but no. Otherwise, super, super nice guy. If he turns to the dark side, it'd be like watching a, you know, Powder Puff or something and turn to the dark side. Which has happened, actually, if you watch the TV show. So, anyway, the point is, Clem has actually just completely surpassed HeRoMaRinE in almost every aspect. He's been better at TvT than HeRoMaRinE for a while. Not that HeRoMaRinE is a slouch in it, of course. HeRoMaRinE was probably considered slightly worse than him, but then actually, at the time that he got to the round of 4 of Katowice, actually, because we had such high opinions of Clem's TvZ. But then we also came into that kind of dilemma, which ended up being, can Clem show that offline? And HeRoMaRinE was far more dependable offline and online. So Clem would be very spiky. His overall trend in TvZ online was better, but then offline in the tournaments and when it mattered and stuff like that, that was really questionable. And then he also had the Open Cups, which just proved to be a home field advantage for HeRoMaRinE. So even if Clem was starting to look better in TvT, there'd be some kind of element that would go wrong against HeRoMaRinE, and then HeRoMaRinE would win no matter what. But that's really changed. Clem has gotten even better in his TvZ, more adaptable. He's gotten much better at his TvP, which was, I think at one point, actually his weakest matchup. I think I won Katowice this year, it was. And then he has also gotten tremendously better at TvT. Perhaps most importantly, he's gotten more consistent with it. And then second most importantly, he's gotten more lethal with it. He just wins within 5 minutes. It's kind of crazy. The micro that would be so shock and awe, but not quite enough to kill the guy, is now turned into shock, awe, and kill. 7 months ago, you were like, wow, excellent micro, that's so cool, oh my god, great, okay, now the rest of the game. Now you watch Clem micros, early game units, and you're like, wow, cool, so much cool micro, okay, that's the end of the game. Oh shit, alright. Okay, let's move on. So HeRoMaRinE's up against what is now, I suppose, the Master TvT. The last, let's see, since April of this year. No, let's just go to the beginning of the year. It's easier for me. In this year that is 2023, Clem is 11-3 in matches against HeRoMaRinE. So he's been beating him this entire year, beating him more so the last year, and then before that it was almost always HeRoMaRinE sided, I think. So Clem is once again coming in as a favorite. HeRoMaRinE can win in a best of 3 against Clem. He did so just last month, actually. But it was still very contested, very close. Clem is the favorite. And Clem has opted to go for a rather defensive opener here, as HeRoMaRinE opts to go for a decent amount of Reapers and Hellions. If he doesn't end up doing anything with them, they're going to be kind of wasted resources. Clem moving on to bigger and better things. Kind of. A Medivac has so much potential, I guess is what I'm really thinking of, especially as I think of Clem using it. Whereas HeRoMaRinE with Reapers and Hellions, as we get into 4 minutes, I just feel like has less potential. Well, the drop really does not have a lot of potential, apparently. And Clem even lost the Cyclone on the front lines. Hey! Clem actually not getting rewarded very much for doing the drop. Well, the drop still exists, actually. Kind of. Hey, this is, I would say kind of a wash. I mean, arguably better for HeRoMaRinE, right? Because he might have taken longer to get to a Cyclone, but he killed his opponents. So he loses those early game units that were becoming increasingly more useless, but they did their job. They helped defend the front lines and helped gun down a Cyclone. So this actually is better start for HeRoMaRinE. Only slightly. It's 1.5 SCV lead, I guess you could say. 1 army supply lead. Third CCs equally timed. Both of them macroing away. HeRoMaRinE with a slight supply block, maybe. I don't think he was building anything to actually get supply blocked. So not actually supply blocked. Starts up stim faster. Now, Clem is not starting up stim yet, as he instead opted to go for a handful of Vikings. That's taking his gas. He now is under gas and should be starting up his stim soon. I've actually not seen the reaction of pulling the SCVs into the auto turret. The second auto turret. I guess since they're already pulled. Is the argument there? Huh. Anywho, HeRoMaRiNE's faster Raven popped out and came across the map. I don't know if it was actually faster, but it came across the map faster. And was able to kill 3 SCVs, furthering HeRoMaRiNE's SCV lead up to now 4, 3.5 maybe. But Clem, as I was trying to talk about, has gone for a slightly different composition. HeRoMaRiNE also starting to build Vikings, though. So he just built Stim first, then Vikings. And with Defender's Advantage, that does favor him as well. A lot of little things are favoring HeRoMaRiNE. However, Clem just walked across the map where HeRoMaRiNE had not noticed, and now HeRoMaRiNE will be denied his 3rd CC from landing on location. I mean, he'll eventually get it, yes, but it's a question whether it can be right here, right now. Tanks and unsiege from Clem walk away from the siege tanks of HeRoMaRiNE. One of the injured ones saved. And Clem is not going to just abandon this pseudo-contain because of that. He's going to keep going and even rallying forward another tank. It might not work out, though. One tank gets taken down, other one is the interference matrix, and that rallying tank does realize I am in the wrong part of town. The Marine drop in the main base is going to find at least some success. A handful of SCVs are going down. That tank cannot catch up. They can't move and shoot. There we go. Marines walk into it this time. But 10 SCVs is actually an incredible amount. I thought they'd get 5 at most. Medevac will fully unload too before being gunned down. Just a couple of extra seconds bought here as Clem maneuvers onto the 3rd CC, lands his Vikings with some auto turrets, take out HeRoMaRiNE's forward place tank, which means something's protecting the 3rd CC yet again, and Clem is dangerously close to killing the 3rd CC. HeRoMaRiNE forced pull the SCVs to repair, will be able to save it, and will be able to push back Clem's little army. But HeRoMaRiNE has taken some damage that he was not expecting to. This was looking like it was lining up for every little thing to go in HeRoMaRiNE's favor, and that if he had been able to get his positioning before Clem walked on the other side of the map, this would have been no issue whatsoever, I think. It's because Clem was able to kind of surprise him, and then kind of double down when you don't necessarily expect it, and of course get that medevac in the main base. It's everything after the fact that really has caused the damage necessary. Clem did need to do some damage to make up for a little bit, but he's done more than enough. He now is ahead by 7 workers. His army supply is a little lower, and HeRoMaRiNE has plenty of time to recover the SCV losses. But that's the highlight of Clem, I guess, nowadays, even when he was not necessarily supposed to do a lot. I mean, he's certainly very confident in the matchup, so he literally moving across the map, catching HeRoMaRiNE for that 3rd CC, and then doubling down. Just drop his army over here and drop in the main base as well. These are the little things that a lot of other Terran players wouldn't have bothered. They figured it wouldn't be worth it. They figure it's better resources used, you know, attention resources better used back at home. Whatever, but Clem was able to squeeze something out of a very dry lemon there. Still not ahead, though. Still not ahead, necessarily. HeRoMaRiNE quick to recovering the SCV lead. Not lead. SCV count. There you go. He had a big dip. That was nice. Hardly a big dip, actually. Even when he was down 7 workers, HeRoMaRiNE's economy was pretty freaking close to Clem's. His upgrades are a little bit faster as well. HeRoMaRiNE, that is. And it's just a matter of watching how the battle unfolds, I suppose. Because what that gave me was confidence in Clem's ability to take a battle. He actually was going to lose that battle. Maybe not. Now, then there's just more Marines for Clem. But Clem did not have 1-1 then. It's always a little scary. Now everything's a little bit closer in the unit count, but the upgrades are done. So I think that's why HeRoMaRiNE wanted to rededicate. He noticed the 0-0. But yeah, they're within 15 seconds of each other's upgrades. It's a spawning supply depots around for HeRoMaRiNE. I don't think there's any missile turrets. Nope. Second factory on the way for our Red Terran. Second factory for Clem is already done, emphasizing that first and foremost. And then going into 3 additional barracks. So he has chosen his late game approach to the ZVT, which is far more marine-based, not going into the triple starport. He wants to control the game as he has been basically controlling it. There's been gaps between battles, but Clem has been the one always on the move, trying to be offensive. HeRoMaRinE finally getting some Marines on the side of the map. However, guns after that 4th CC is going to be able to grab for those tanks, siege up, and he's gonna be able to skedaddle as well. There we go, getting some revenge for earlier on. Clem found out of position without any type of scouts on that right side. Thought he had controlled that avenue of attack, probably, because he had his own little hit squad over to the right side. It just was too far to the right. At the very least, being able to pick up every single kill that he could before finally being rid of that. Losing an entire 4th command center, even if it wasn't for free from the other Terran. I mean, that's painful. Clem's looking for some revenge, but despite killing all of those units, HeRoMaRinE is pretty quick to replace them. Didn't really seem to dip that far down in supply at all, and has even immediately picked up another medevac to head on over to what he knows to be a just building 4th CC. Clem, no fool, is rallying towards it, however. He knows the 3rd CC is actually protected by a tank as well, but also by the sensor tower. Speaking of sensor towers, there is not one for HeRoMaRinE off the left, but he is aware of Clem's movements, or at least guessed appropriately. He does have a decent number of tanks, to say the least, around that 4th base, which is also already a planetary. Some Marines up on top of a tank, or 2 or 3. I think that was 3 tanks killed right there. And Clem's position is starting to get weaker and weaker. I don't know if he can really look to bust HeRoMaRinE's defensive tank lineup, as the Viking battle even goes in favor of HeRoMaRinE. It was 100% going to go in favor of him, as he had way more Vikings, or just elsewhere, I suppose. HeRoMaRinE is also going into the double starport follow-up, so that's a bit more expected if you do think about the way this game has gone. Clem the aggressor, HeRoMaRinE the defender. This little drop turns into a little harassment, better than nothing, perhaps a little distraction as well, but Clem, not so much a problem with paying attention to his frontline army as much as it was just that he didn't have much left over. But look at this, HeRoMaRinE totally undefended on this right side. The tanks so beautifully set up to take care of this particular choke are not actually protecting the 3rd CC from the very far right side. Oh man, but at least they'll save the command center as they save the SCVs, repairing it. Oh boy. Clem once again felt like he was reaching a wall. And suddenly, in the blink of an eye, is just torn down HeRoMaRinE's defenses, tore down the 3rd CC, tore down the tank line on the left side, or maybe HeRoMaRinE unsieged some to move on over to the right. It seems to be what he did. He unsieged like almost all of them to move, and then hope the planetary would hold, which it did actually, because Clem was so tank light himself after the initial battles. But at the end of the day, like, still HeRoMaRinE down in supply by a lot. He's down 50 supply almost. And he has not started up his upgrades, so now Clem's getting hit on +3 attack. Clem replaced his 4th CC a while ago and is moving on to his 5th. HeRoMaRinE, I actually thought he had found that solid point. 4 base, 9 tanks, now up to 11 actually. And then the ability to go into a starport play, kind of the superior army if you get into good position. I thought he was doing it. But Clem finds that right place to strike, somewhat luckily. I mean, I don't think he actually scanned ahead. He's just like, oh, there's something here. How about that? And HeRoMaRinE's going to be shaking his head at that one. He has so many tanks. 1 or 2 definitely could have been placed in a more anti... Wish we had, like, call-outs on maps here. Like, the very far right side ramp. Instead, he purely focused on this one, which is the fastest point of which Clem can attack into. But Clem's trying to catch him out of position, so he's going to move over slightly more to the right and once again look to abuse the same attack. This time around, HeRoMaRinE does have some defenses, but unfortunately does not have many defenses on the left side. Just 2 Ravens came in from Clem with energy, I suppose. Take out the tanks from helping out, and HeRoMaRinE is just going to tap even before his bases die. He sees a losing game, and Clem will win. Yeah, GG. In the bottom right of Babylon, we have Team Liquid's Clem. In the top left, it is Mouse HeRoMaRinE. And I gotta reiterate, I actually thought HeRoMaRinE was crossing that line. There does seem to be a line that the triple starport player has to cross before they start to feel like they're in control. They're the one that's favored to win. And that line is usually getting 4 bases set up. And, I don't know, like 8+ tanks, I guess. And then it's really hard to break them. Because trying to break a planetary with, let's say, 4 tanks is notoriously difficult. And then while the other 4 tanks might be a little vulnerable depending on how much kind of fodder there is for them on like the 3rd orbital, for instance, usually, you know, unless it's a very desperate game, we're talking about an even supply scenario in the setup that I just explained, usually that's enough. And then maybe it's a doom drop that really starts to go problematic. But a lot of times when they get set up like that, and they get maxed out themselves, and they have their triple starport production, the push comes to shove. HeRoMaRinE would then say, okay, I think I'm protected enough to kind of start pushing out here. And their goal would be to get to the other side of the map, and then Clem's goal would be able to take as good a fights as possible, if he can, or distract, or even base trade, which we've seen a lot in those 8 racks versus 3 starport scenarios. The 8 racks player going, yeah, I messed up. I didn't do it. I didn't do this correctly. Now I got a base trade. And that just didn't happen, even though it looked like HeRoMaRinE was over that line. But I guess it was more like his toe was about to go over, and then he got cracked. He got whipped in the face. Because it really was getting to that very close line of, okay, Clem cannot break this. Clem did, and it was, as harsh as to say, it was entirely on HeRoMaRinE. To not have any protection on that particular attack path leading up to his 3rd was a huge mistake. And maybe not a game-ending mistake, but then having also the pressure on the 4th base, gaining some type of presence, gaining some types of trades, it did become game-breaking. You know, I think if it's just in a vacuum, that break on the 3rd and the loss of 15 SCVs or whatever it was, I think HeRoMaRinE can recover, puts him in a slightly worse position, of course, and overall the game go to Clem, but I think he could kind of recover. But it was that he was under so much pressure for so long. And kind of getting killed on both ends. And not able to replace the supply fast enough. It led to him tapping out prior to any base actually going down. But HeRoMaRinE has opted to go for a 1-Rex expand 2-1-1 opener. Now, a lot of the times in TvT, the way that you get into a 2-1-1 is by opening up with a 2 racks on 1 base for Reapers. And then obviously keep your barracks at home. And then you go into stim and whatnot. Okay, no, I was wrong. It wasn't 2-1-1. So, but it is a 2 barracks opener. And that's interesting then. Like, why would he do it in this particular fashion? He also gets supply block a little bit. Oh, command center finish. Okay. Again, usually you see those 2 barracks first and foremost, you're thinking multiple Reapers, but it's actually Clem who has gone for multiple Reapers. He went for 3 in total before adding on the reactor. They are being successfully blocked from doing any damage, though, so not a particularly good opener for Clem. HeRoMaRinE, the faster orbital commands and faster stim. I guess basically opened like 2 barracks, didn't build the Reapers, and then adds a Cyclone for safety. But he could have a second tech lab built because he had the 2nd barracks, so he is still getting stim faster, and he is still basically molding this into a 2-1-1. It's just the way you get there can obviously be different and has to be different across the matchups. But that means, so now that nothing's been disturbed here, he's not going to just lose the game or anything like that. And that means that he is going to be the one that's actually taking control of the map. So he's going to have Marines and medevacs flying around, and he's going to try and open up those opportunities that Clem opened up in the last game. So it's time for Clem to be on a little more of the defense. Now, this could just be HeRoMaRinE wanting to take control as himself, just wanting to be the boss. It could be that he thinks that Clem would be a little uncomfortable in such a scenario. And if he can get away with it, then he's going to be putting Clem into this uncomfortable feeling. Or it could be that he just is maybe even going to gamble with like the 2 medevacs heading right into the main base. I don't know. But he can't gamble so much as far as it being undetected. He's not going to get the advantage of that, as Clem does know now it is a Marine base opener. It looks like he saw that 2nd barracks anyway. And maybe that's why HeRoMaRinE didn't even bother with a couple of Reapers, actually. I don't know. But he knew about the 2 racks, and while the 2 racks doesn't have to immediately go into stim and medevacs, as we saw, the Cyclone popped out first, right? It does mean that they're going to get to that point. And at the very least, faster than you, if not at this timing, right as I'm speaking. So Clem, he did unfortunately lose a Cyclone, which would have been quite helpful against someone running around with medevacs. So he was unable to respond fast enough. He has a couple of units flying across his opponent's base as well. So does Clem actually have enough defense back at home? As long as everything works together, he does. So the auto turret harassment is great. 6 SCVs go down. That's doubled auto turret harassment, by the way. 2 Ravens, 1 on either side. Reapers and a Hellion could also dart in. It seems a little funny at, 6 minutes, but they actually could. And again, it looks like Clem's defenses back at home are totally fine. HeRoMaRinE, the best case scenario for a 2-on-1 player is to find a typical Terran opener who's like, oh, I'll get a 3rd CC, la-di-da, that's not a problem. Clem is not foolish enough to do that. He knows that he's going to be under a lot of pressure. I don't know, until like minute 8, I suppose. And that any sacrifice of his economy will probably be worth the safety, because it's not like his opponent's grabbing a very fast 3rd CC either. Now, this can turn into a situation in which HeRoMaRinE manages to get a faster one, like gets one on location, and then delays Clem's from actually landing. That has happened before, but with the way that Clem is handling this, it actually seems like that's not going to be the case. Because Clem is defending on 2 bases in the most protective way you possibly can. 2 base setup, right? And then he's denying HeRoMaRinE's economy. That's the worst case scenario. The guy who's supposed to be in control is not in control. And Clem is about to figure out he's going to go for a Doom drop. It's actually kind of turning into just a drop on top of the army. The Vikings return back home to try and help out. 2 tanks are getting a couple of shots, but is it going to be enough? The SCVs are being pulled. HeRoMaRinE going for the throat here, going for the gamble drop, and it's going to work out here. The natural has been broken. Clem loses 13 SCVs, 15 SCVs, and might even lose his natural command center. Does he have the SCVs to actually repair? Yes, he does, just barely. And he will take that high ground position as well. However, the scan was there for HeRoMaRinE, so that one tank on the corner does get obliterated. HeRoMaRinE opening up Clem's defenses in the nick of time as well. That was getting very scary. Kind of similar to what I was describing for the last game. It felt like Clem was reaching that line, was going to jump over it momentarily, where he just could not be broken on 2 bases. HeRoMaRinE's build was going to be ineffective, and right before it actually got to that point, HeRoMaRinE finds that one opening. And Clem even got more of a warning than I would think a lot of other people would have. He just could not collect his army forces together fast enough. Now HeRoMaRinE's going to try and break the main base. I'm not sure this is actually going to work. It might actually... Yeah, it actually is. It is. 2 tanks. Not enough to stop. HeRoMaRinE calling that absolutely correctly. And Clem on the ropes, just trying to survive because he still knows his 3rd CC is that much faster. But he'd have to break out within the next 30 seconds, I think, to actually have a chance of winning this game. And that does not seem to be happening. He does have a Liberator, and his opponent has no Vikings, so the Liberator will eventually be able to leapfrog forward. The problem is, without any tanks covering, he can't stop the Marines from gunning it down. But now that a tank is available, he should be able to do that. SimSteady ends up being a bit of a problem for Clem, by the way. Yep, there you go. His SCP count's actually not that bad. And again, 3rd CC to 2. Actually, HeRoMaRinE's 3rd just finished, not in orbital quite yet. Course, scouts around for the secret base. Little obvious. Kind of worth the attempt, I guess. Assuming that you see the Marines are over on this side. If the Marines are gone from the natural, then you're in trouble. Clem's trying to force his way out of this predicament, but it's been 60 seconds now. Still hasn't taken his natural. Certainly not going to take his 3rd anytime soon. HeRoMaRinE picked up more units. He's actually going to boost him into the main base. Now, Clem actually has a decent number of Marines, but they do not have combat shields, and they do not have medevacs. Okay, they have 1, but he's going to be all types of stuck in. That's kind of a brutal choke. The tank gets so many more shots than you would want, and the Marines were slaughtering the SCVs this entire time. That is officially game over. At this point, Clem approaching a little bit of a fancy GG timing, a little bit. Clem, you know, more on the side of a later tap out than an earlier tap out, which I think is totally acceptable. There's like this like perfect time that is actually impossible to meet every single match. But you know, he kind of errs on the a little bit later tap out. HeRoMaRinE sometimes a little bit on the earlier side. But as I was gonna say, this is getting like way over the line. Obsessed with lines today. GG's. So now the series is all tied up. Bottom left, Clem. Top right, HeRoMaRinE. Had Clem had a slightly earlier indication of HeRoMaRinE's plans, which would have been very difficult to get, he might have been able to hold. Because if his Vikings are positioned to tear down one medevac before it even fully unloads, that in and of itself is a completely different scenario. But then also whatever he had in his main base, I think he had 2 tanks. They were trying to unsiege and get on over there faster. Probably would have been alright. But like I said, it would have been quite difficult to find out HeRoMaRinE's intentions. It's another part of the power of what HeRoMaRinE did, is that you don't really have that ability to know where exactly the medevacs are coming in. And at a certain point, you have enough units that you don't necessarily care. You're like, no, your time to surprise me is over. I have enough defenses on both my bases. I'm going to start moving over to my third, delicately, carefully, while building up probably static defense. And you're just not going to crack me. But at that point, Clem was still a little low on the unit count. And he was still trying to place his units in the correct positions to safeguard against all manners of attack. So the Vikings had moved way far off to the right to safeguard the natural from a drop that came in from a less direct position. It's one of those situations in which the it's so obvious it's good, you know? Like who attacks right through the middle? Who does that? Well, that's why you do it. And HeRoMaRinE manages to even things up. Now we get ourselves into a funny scenario where they both are thinking the same thing. 2 racks from both players. Like I said, last game, maybe because HeRoMaRinE was scouted so quickly is why I didn't bother doing it. I'm not sure. No, but he 1x expanded, so no, he wouldn't have gone for Reapers. Like he got scouted on the second barracks at some point, but he didn't opt for Reapers at all. That's not why he had 2 barracks. In this case, it's definitely that 1 base 2 rack setup with both of them having 2 racks at home. First of all, they shouldn't really go topsy-turvy. Second of all, they both should be heading into a 2-1-1 setup. But Clem, oh, Clem's actually just going right into a factory. See, this is what I expect from both players, what HeRoMaRinE's doing. Getting a command center. Oh, Clem's dedicating. Oh no, interesting. Clem gonna win this battle? He seems to think so. SCV was not leading the charge. He does get to help out. 1 hit. Oh, we got a second hit. Nicely done. 2 Reapers down once again for Clem, but 3 total units here for HeRoMaRinE means that Clem cannot find the snowball that he was looking for. And the bunker finishes and makes life much easier for HeRoMaRinE. Now, they both figure out what they're doing, by the way, at this point. The number of units that have been shown at the point in which they've been shown, they both know what's going on. What Clem is doing that's secretive, though, is that factory being so much faster. So he has a huge delay on his command center. This is a risk that he is taking right now. But he thinks it's going to pay off. I'm not so sure. His Reapers try to enter into the main base. Were unsuccessful, but they didn't necessarily all die. Yeah, so they're still a part of the troop. A bunker in the natural is a real sore point. HeRoMaRinE was greedier. This is where Clem could do a lot of damage, but he could still run past the bunker. Okay, so he's going to use the high ground here. The Helling's going to help out by maybe 1 or 2 shots, maybe even a third, actually. It's still going. In fact, and oh my god, that is it. That is actually it. I did not have faith. Come on. He wasn't building anything from the factory. Oh, he's building a tech lab. Wow. That Hellion actually tanked so many shots and still contributed. Ay, ay, ay. These games.